You are the first president since Grover Cleveland to win non-consecutive terms. Republicans now have control of the House and the Senate.
Right.
What do you plan to accomplish in your first 100 days in office?
Well, we're going to do something with the border, and very strong, very powerful. That'll be our first signal, and a first signal to America that we're not playing games.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of Common Sense View. Today I have a special one for you, which is the interview, the first ever interview between Donald Trump and any media in the world since he became the 47th president-elect of the United States. This interview was conducted by Christian Walker, the same person that was co-interviewer with Harris Faulkner at the sorority event late before the election. In this time around, she presented herself very well, and it was a very cordial interview. And of course, you see some desire to go on the offensive as if it was her own ass to grind. But in a way, Trump controlled the entire interview. They used to say he rambles. I don't see any person who can say that Trump was rambling in this interview. As a matter of fact, after the interview with Joe Rogan, it's obvious that what people call rambling was more or less weaving in their own language. So there wasn't so much weaving in this interview. Rather, there were more explicit and direct answers to direct questions. And at a point where she wanted to over-inject herself, Trump put her in her place by telling her that if the media could be if she could be less biased against him, that she would be a great caster, more or less. So I'm not going to interject so much into the interview so that you'll be able to hear what he has to say, because most of them are really policy based, which I believe is why the people put him there this second time around. And also, it is almost about 34 questions, so I'm going to divide it into 6 questions per section. That way it will be easier to watch, but I will also have a longer version of the interview which has the entire interview in one point. Now, you can watch in the shorter version or you can go all the way, but trust me, every single point of the interview was interesting, especially where Donald Trump was making explicit both his domestic and foreign policy and the effect they are going to have, possibly if they are carried out well, on the life of the Americans, especially when he was talking about crime in the street, and also how he's going to be the mediator between the warring factions of the world, and how he's going to tackle the DOJ related part of stuff, which includes the January 6th select committee, as he called them, and the impact they played, especially deleting the findings of their investigation because of the person they supposed was guilty and not him. So I will let you listen in to the interview, and where I find it necessary to interject, I will come, but I will be as brief as possible so that you have the opportunity to see how the policies he has already put together and the personalities he has gathered together to forefront these policies, and how they are going to be beneficial to your life and more or less the life of the world. So let's watch together.
President-elect Donald Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. You are the first president since Grover Cleveland to win non-consecutive terms. Republicans now have control of the House and the Senate.
Right.
What do you plan to accomplish in your first 100 days in office?
Well, we're going to do something with the border, and very strong, very powerful. That'll be our first signal, and a first signal to America that we're not playing games. We have people coming in by the millions, as you know, and a lot of people shouldn't be here. Most of them shouldn't be here, but we have jails being emptied into our country. We have mental institutions from all over the world being emptied into our country. So we'll be doing that. We're going to be extending within that period, or as soon as we can, the Trump tax cuts, because, you know, they're coming due and they're very substantial for people. And It would be very, I think it will anger a lot of people, frankly, if we don't get an extension of that. That's what led us to one of the greatest economies ever. And those two things are going to be very vital, very important. We're going to be focusing on crime in the cities, and we'll work with Democrat governors. Most of them are, as you know, if you look at the 25 worst places, they're just about all Democrat-controlled cities and states. And we're going to be working with Democrat governors and Democrat mayors. And I look forward to doing it. But we have to do something about crime, and mostly in our cities. And we're going to have a lot of other things. We'll be working on nominations. We're going to still be working on some nominations. I think they're going very well. We have, for the most part, I think they're going extremely well. It looks like Peter's doing well now. I mean, people were a little bit concerned. He's a young guy with a tremendous track record, actually. He went to Princeton and went to Harvard. He was a good student at both, but he loves the military, and I think people are starting to see it. So we'll be working on his nomination along with a lot of others.
We are going to delve into your nominations, but since you bring him up, do you still have confidence in Pete Hegseth?
Yes, I do. I really do. He's a very smart guy.
The fact that there are these allegations against him, misconduct, sexual misconduct, heavy drinking, the fact that he said to some senators reportedly he'll stop drinking if he gets this job, does that worry you?
No, I think that everybody has something that they can stop. Some people can stop eating. I'm lucky I'm not a drinker, but I could stop eating. And we all want to stop doing something. And if he said that, I mean, that's a nice thing to say. That's a good thing to say. But he's very respected. I can tell you, I know a lot of the people at Fox, they think he's fantastic. And the people that work with him, really, they love him. So it's a very big, risky thing he's doing. When he goes and he says, I'm going to give up, millions of dollars in order to possibly become the Secretary of Defense. A lot of people would say it's a great position. It's probably almost no greater position, but a lot of people would say, I have to think about it. He said, I don't have to think about it.
All right, we're going to delve into your cabinet picks a little bit later, but I want to delve into one of your signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price.
Yeah, before we go to that second question, which was about his tariff plans for the tariff, I want to make a point regarding Pete Hegseth. Now, first of all, this question number one that was just concluded was more or less a summary of the entire administration, especially the first 100 days. He mentioned the tax cut to make it permanent. So that, because if it goes off, that will cause a ripples on the economy. And also, he mentioned he put his weight behind Pete Hegseth. He put his weight behind Pete, saying that he's someone who wants to sacrifice everything in order to be part of making the life of the veterans better. That he wasn't thinking about the possibility of not getting to this office and the damage it would do to his brand, because if it fails, there's no going back. So settling that, it shows that all the wobbling and the noise making for the past week about pets, that he has total support and backing of Trump. So nothing to fear. And not just Trump, he has the backing of the MAGA people. And also most senators are now backing him, including Senator Ernst, who was from the beginning against. So the next question was about inflation and tariff. So in order not to be jumping in every now and then, after that question about inflation and tariff, there were a lot of follow-up questions, and the people going to pay even more. And she was also mentioning that last time it was about 80 times or something like that people were paying more, and Trump explained to her that it wasn't true. That the only place where it seemed like was regarding the when he put the tariff on China, that they were no more bringing in their washing machines. Everything changed. The one that had belonged to the country solidified and got more jobs returned instead of getting people sacked. So sorry for that. Another thing he mentioned in that part was if you use the tariff negatively, which he said he was not going to use. So after that, he talked about minimum wage. So follow it in that direction. So I will be quiet after explaining these 6 points, because these six points he mentioned were what I segmented to take care of the first part of the interview. After the minimum wage, he talked about Federal Reserve Chairman, if he will resign or not, if there's any reason to tell him to go. And then the fifth question was the deportation, if he was going to maintain the zero tolerance policy, and then the logistics of the deportation, families, whether they'll be deported even though they're Americans. And in that one, he said what Tom Homan said was what is going to happen. If they want to stick together, then you deport them together. And finally, under that segment was health, Obamacare. And Trump mentioned that he made it functional. So on that point, I want us to go back to continue where we stopped with the interview. Thank you for your patience, and don't get mad at me. I'm just trying to use the fair use right, because I didn't conduct this interview.
Although peanuts compared to what people do to us, what countries do to us, it became a very, very powerful, successful company. Now, let's say I didn't do the tariffs. It would have gone out of business. You would have lost tens of thousands of jobs, and you don't include that in your equation. No, they make a lot of money. I'll go a step further. Tariffs are going to make our country rich. Tariffs are going to help us pay off $35 trillion in debt. Tariffs are going to make our country safe, because China, as an example, doesn't want to play games with us if we're going to do tariffs on them. They don't want to play games. And we have a lot of games being played on us right now.
Well, I think, and that takes me to my next question. Yeah. Are you actually going to impose these tariffs, or are they a negotiating tactic?
Well, I'll give you an example. With Canada, and in particular Mexico, we have millions of people pouring into our country. You agree with that. I spoke with I spoke with Justin Trudeau. In fact, he flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call ended. Yeah. He was at Mar-a-Lago. We were having dinner talking about it. I said, you have to close up your borders, because they're coming in the northern border too a lot. Not like the southern border, but they're coming in the Canadian border a lot. And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in, maybe more importantly, drugs are pouring in at levels never seen before, 10 times what we had. They're just pouring in. We can't have open borders. And I said to the president of Mexico and to Justin Trudeau, if it doesn't stop, I'm going to put tariffs on your country at about 25%. That's a very substantial.
Let me ask you about another aspect of the economy, sir, the minimum wage. The federal minimum wage has been $7.25 since 2009. There are 20 states that still have the federal minimum wage at $7.25, and I actually have a map. 19 of these states actually voted for you, sir. Mm-hmm. And you can see it right here. I don't know if you remember this, but during the debate in 2020, I asked you if you would raise the minimum wage. You said you would consider it. And so my question for you is, now that you are going back to the White House, for these 19 states that voted for you, are you going to raise the federal minimum wage?
It's a very low number. I will agree. It's a very low number. Let me give you the downside, though. Yeah. In California, they raised it up to a very high number. And your restaurants are going out of business all over the place. The population is shrinking. It's had a very negative impact. But there is a level at which you could do it, absolutely. Yeah.
What is that level, do you
think? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I can say this. You have a lot of businesses that are open and thriving because of the lower minimum wage. If you raise it too much, and you understand this, if California went crazy. They went crazy. And people, the restaurants are closing all over. Many more people are hurt.
So I hear you saying, similarly to sort of what you said in 2020, will you consider it? Is this something you're going to look at?
I'd want to speak to the governors. And the other thing that's very complicated about minimum wages is places are so different. Mississippi and Alabama and great places are very different than New York or California. I mean, in terms of the cost of living and other things. So it would be nice to have just a minimum wage for the whole country, but it wouldn't work, because you have places where it's very inexpensive to live, where a minimum wage, which is $8 or $9, might have very little effect, because the cost of living in certain places is really low.
Before we move on to immigration, which I do want to talk about, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, said he will not leave his post even if you ask him to. Will you try to replace Jerome Powell?
No, I don't think so. I don't see it. But I don't. I think if I told him to, he would. But if I asked him to, he probably wouldn't. But if I told him to, he would.
You don't have plans to do that right now?
No, I don't.
Okay, let's talk about mass deportation, one of your big agenda items. You've talked about prioritizing people who have criminal histories.
Correct.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it. And it's a very tough thing to do. But you have to have, you have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally. The people that have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been online for 10 years to come into the country. And we're going to make it very easy for people to come in terms of they have to pass the test. They have to be able to tell you what the Statue of Liberty is. They have to tell you a little bit about our country. They have to love our country. They can't come out of prisons. We don't want people that are in for murder. So we had 11,000 and 13,000 different estimates, 13,099 murderers released into our country over the last 3 years. They're walking down the streets. They're walking next to you and your family. And they're very dangerous.
The 13,000 figure, I think, goes back about 40 years.
No, it doesn't. No,
That
it's within the 3-year period.
figure.
It's during the Biden term. No, that was a fiction that they put that out. This was done by the Border Patrol. It's 13,099, and it's during the Biden period of time. And these are murderers, many of whom murdered more than one person. You don't want those people in this country.
It has to go.
I'm saying this. We have to get the criminals out of our country. We have to get people that were taken out of mental institutions and put them back into their mental institution, no matter what country it is. Do you know that Venezuela, their prisons are at the lowest point in terms of emptiness that they've ever been? They're taking their people out of those prisons by the thousands, and they're drunk. And just to get back, because I know exactly what you're getting at. Number one, we're doing criminals, and we're going to do them really rapidly. We're getting the worst gang probably with MS-13, and the Venezuelan gangs are the worst in the world. They're vicious, violent people. And you see what they've done in Colorado and other places. They're taking over, literally taking over apartment complexes and doing it with impunity. They don't care. They couldn't, they just are, they're in the real estate business.
The local police say that is not the case in Colorado.
Oh, it's totally the case. I mean, I have it
you
on
don't
tape.
believe the local police?
I play it. I used to play it at my rallies every single night. No choice. First of all, they're costing us a fortune. But we're starting with the criminals, and we got to do it. And then we're starting with others, and we're going to see how it goes.
Who are the others?
Others are other people outside of criminals. We have convicted murders. We don't mean people that are even on trial. We have people that have murdered numerous people are on our streets and in our farms, and we have to get them out of our country.
What about dreamers, sir? Dreamers who were brought to this country illegally as children. You said once back in 2017, they, quote, shouldn't be very worried about being deported. Should they be worried now?
The dreamers are going to come later, and we have to do something about the dreamers, because these are people that have been brought here at a very young age, and many of these are middle-aged people now. They don't even speak the language of their country. And yes, we're going to do something about the dreamers. What does that mean? And we're talking many years ago they were brought into this country, many years ago. Some of them are no longer young people. And in many cases, they become successful. They have great jobs. In some cases, they have small businesses. Some cases, they might have large businesses. And we're going to have to do something with something out. And it should have been able to be worked out over the last 3 or 4 years. And it never got worked out. Biden could have done it because he controlled, Congress to a certain extent, right? He could have done something, but they didn't do it. I never understood why, because they always seem to want to do it, but then when it comes down to it, they don't. I think we can work with the Democrats and work something out.
There are two aspects to this. Your border czar, Tom Homan, said they can be deported together.
Correct.
Is that the plan?
Well, that way you keep I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
Even kids who are here legally?
Well, what you're going to do if they want to stay with the father, look, we have to have rules and regulations. You can always find something out like, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I'll tell you what's going to be horrible. When we take a wonderful young woman who's with a criminal, and they show the woman, and she could stay by the law, but they show the woman being taken out, or they want her out, and your cameras are focused on her as she's crying, as she's being taken out of our country, and then the public turns against us. But we have to do our job. And you have to have a series of standards and a series of laws. And in the end, look, our country is a mess. We have the highest crime rate. And during the debate, a man whose ratings have gone way down, David Muir, said to me, no, crime is, because I had to debate 3 people, not 1. Debating 1 was easy. Debating 3 was actually pretty easy, too, if you want to know the truth. But David Muir said, the crime rates have gone down. I said, no, they've gone up. And then the following day, they released the crime rates, and they were way up.
Yeah, the FBI statistics are, you're talking about those FBI statistics.
Well, no, but he gave the wrong answer.
Confusing based on what you're looking at.
But a lot of that is migrant crime.
Let me ask you about another aspect of this.
Christian, you know a lot of it's migrant crime.
Well, let me ask you about another aspect of this that I think a lot of people are really curious about. I mean, 3% of the people who are here illegally have criminal histories. But in your first administration, you had the zero tolerance policy, where we did see family separations.
Yeah.
You ended it. The purpose of that, though, to some extent, and you talked about this at the time, was deterrent.
You also had it with Obama. You do know that.
He didn't have a zero tolerance policy.
And you also know he built the jails for children.
He didn't have a zero tolerance policy.
But in 2014, he built the jails. You know that.
I want to ask you about the zero tolerance policy. I mean, he didn't have a systemic, we're going to separate families. Families were separated when parents were a threat to the kids.
We don't have to separate a family.
This.
Excuse me, Kristen.
Yeah.
We don't have to separate families. Yeah. We'll send the whole family very humanely back to the country where they came. That way the family's not separated.
So no more family separations. You're not reviving the zero tolerance policy.
Well, it depends on the family. The family may decide to say, I'd rather have dad go, and we'll stay here. And in which case they have that option.
But you're not going to revive your zero tolerance policy, which was put in place as a deterrent. Is there any universe where you would bring that back, sir?
We need deterrence. Look, ready? When somebody comes here illegally, they're going out. It's very simple. When they come here illegally, they're going out. Now, if they come here illegally, but their family is here legally, then the family has a choice. The person that came in illegally can go out, or they can all go out together. And that was made very clear by Tom Homan.
So you're not, at this point in time, planning to revive that zero tolerance policy where kids are separated?
Well, if you call that, yeah, I'm doing what I just told you I'm going to do. You know.
So this, for me, this marks the end of this section of the interview. According to how I divided them to make them watchable because they're a little bit long. So the next segment of the interview will start with the IVF. How, if he's going to keep his promise about paying for everyone or anyone who wants to get IVF. And also there's opposition regarding that. So in the concluded section, you heard what he said about immigration, especially the zero tolerance, all those nomenclature and the semantics about everything, and how she wants to push back on the things, not just because they are not clear, but because, you know, they are usually agenda driven. So in this second section, as I said, it started with the IVF. IVF is the second section. I think Obamacare, to take it out of, either take it out completely or make it better and more accessible. Then the next thing on that agenda is abortion. So they were still bringing up the idea that he's going to write executive order to ban abortion or taking off abortion pill, and he still reiterated that that is not going to happen. And then he's talking about, this is where they talked a little bit about Kash Patel and all some other people he picked in the administration, what they are going to do, if they are going to go after the detractors. And he said in a plain language, if there is any reason why they should go after somebody, maybe somebody who's committed a crime, or that's no reason why they shouldn't. But he's not going to give them a direct order, as was done in the era of Biden, where somebody has to leave the number 3 post in the federal government to go to a district, work for a district attorney. So he was not going to do that. But he believed that Kash Patel and Pambandi can know what to do and how to do their job independently. Also, in this segment, also investigating the investigators. That's what Pambandi will be doing, but he's not going to be he's not going to be giving them instruction to do that. They know the right thing to do. But about the January 6th committee, he was so disgusted about them, and he thinks that they should go to jail for what they did. Not because he wants to put them to jail, but for what they did. So why talking about Kash Patel, he mentioned that there's no reason, he didn't say explicitly that he's going to sack Christopher Wray. Rather, he was sad, or rather angry, that he raided his house and then denied that he was actually wounded by a bullet. So those things for him, they disqualified him if you listen to his tone. And he said it at the end that the fact that he's nominating Kash Patel means that he's going to take somebody's position, and everyone knows whose position he was being nominated to fill. So, and to end that particular section, they talked about something regarding identity politics, all the transgender related rules and other things under it. So, having come this far in the interview, please, if you are getting any value either from my own explanation or at least bringing the interview forward, I'll be glad if you subscribe and click the notification bell so that you will not miss any of my posts. Also, like, share, comment. I like to be conversational. If I cannot talk to you live, so at the moment I can also reply your comments, and I do reply comments. So please, if you are finding any value so far, go down there, subscribe to my channel. I promise to give you my best every single moment. If it's not good enough, I'll try my best to make it better every single moment. So let us continue. As I have done, I don't want to interject. Until he comes to this point of identity politics, I will be quiet. Just know that I am here watching the entire thing with you. So let's go.
I don't want to send the family out. I don't want to send anybody out. But I'll tell you, we have to, because otherwise we have no country. If we don't have borders, and if we don't have voting, good voting, fair voting, do you know they're still counting votes in San Diego, California?
Let's talk about health care. I've been talking to Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill. They say it's no longer feasible to repeal and replace Obamacare because it's so entrenched in the system. Do you see it that way? Is that now off the table, repealing and replacing
when John
Obamacare?
McCain let us down by voting, and Murkowski and Collins and whoever it was that voted against, but they really let us down. They did us a great disservice because we would have had great health. Obamacare is lousy health care. It's very expensive health care for the people. It's also expensive for the country, but for the people. It's lousy health care. When John McCain gave his thumbs down, after saying for 10 years that he wants to repeal and replace, okay? And then he came out, put his now famous thumbs down, and he became a hero to the left. Let me tell you, if we find something better, I would love to do it. But unless we find, but one thing I have to say, I inherited Obamacare, or anything else you want to go, it's got about 20 names, but I inherited it. And I had a decision to make with Health and Human Services. I had a big decision to make. Do I make it as good as we can make it, or do I let it rot? And a lot of political people said, let it rot and let it be a failure. I said, that's not the right thing to do. And I had very good people in the medical area that handled that. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, we really have an obligation to make it as good as we can. And we did. We made it as good as we can make it. Instead of making it bad where everybody would be calling for its repeal, I made it so that it works. Now,
but you did try to overturn it,
it's
sir.
It's
you did
lousy.
try to overturn it. You did have your Justice Department try to direct the Supreme Court to overturn it.
We got a little bit of a surprising opinion, to be honest with you. If it would have been overturned, we would have had much better health care right now. But right now, we have something that I made the best of. I could have made the worst of it, and it would have fallen by the wayside. I did the right thing from a human standpoint. But, you know, I'm sort of proud of my decision. At the same time, sometimes I regret it. I told the people, and I gave them the money to do it. I said, fix it, make it work, because people would have suffered. But it's too bad that they voted no. I wish John McCain, he fought for 10 years on replacing Obamacare, for 10 years, and then he voted against Nobody understands
Sir,
it.
you said during the campaign you had concepts of a plan. Do you have an actual plan at this point for health care?
Yes, we have concepts of a plan that would be better.
Still just concepts? Do you have a fully developed plan?
Let me explain. We have the biggest healthcare companies looking at it. We have doctors. We're always looking because Obamacare stinks. It's lousy. There are better answers. If we come up with a better answer, I would present that answer to Democrats and to everybody else, and I do something about it. But until we have that, or until they can approve it, but we're not going to go through the big deal. I am the one that saved Obamacare, I will say, and I did the right thing. I could have done the more political thing and killed it, and all I had to do is starve it to death.
You did try to have your Justice Department effectively kill it, though,
No.
sir.
Kill it from a legal standpoint, but from a physical standpoint, I made it work.
In your concepts of a plan, sir, will people with pre-existing conditions still have coverage, and can you guarantee their prices will not go up?
The answer is yes. They'll have coverage. You have to have it.
And what about their prices?
Because you know what?
What about their prices, sir?
I want the prices to go down. I want to have better health care for less money. And there are ways of doing it, I believe. And I have the smartest people in that world. You know, that's a separate world unto itself. I have the smartest people in that world looking at it and trying. And if they come up with something, I will present it. Now, maybe you won't be able to sell it. But if we get better health care for less money, I believe it's very saleable.
Just very quickly ask you about another aspect of healthcare. You talked about this on the campaign trail, right. IVF. You promised free IVF for all who want it, either through the government or through mandates with insurance companies. I've been hearing from Republican senators, some of them, who say they're not going to support that plan. How are you going to get that passed?
Well, we're going to see. We want them to pay, ideally the insurance companies to pay for it, the fertilization. I came out very early for a Republican especially, and I think they were looking for my guidance, my great wisdom, right? They were looking for it. And I got a call from Katie Britt, who's a terrific person, senator from Alabama, and she said, sir, we just had a really negative ruling from a judge in Alabama, conservative judge, that all of these clinics had to be closed. And she said, and she went into great detail, and she said people are devastated over it. And after literally speaking to her for 5 minutes, I issued an order, really an order in a sense, and it was a statement from the Republican Party that we are all for IVF and
yeah, before I continue with the IVF issue, yes, he influenced the legislation in Alabama to get a legislation as to reverse the action of the judge that ruled against IVF. But after all that, the noise that he was going to ban IVF continued, which made it easier for Tulsi Gabbard to join him. I think it was Turning Point USA, one of their events, to have extensive interview with Trump regarding the IVF issue. She gave herself an example of somebody who tried to get a kid. She couldn't. And she tried IVF several times. And she said, even though it didn't work for me, I know that it might work for others. Are you going to promise me that you are not going to stop it or ban it in any way? And Trump said that not just that he's not going to ban it. On the contrary, that he will guarantee that the insurance companies will pay for it for anyone who wants to get it. And he made a direct assertion that they want more babies. So on that juncture, we continue.
Fertilization, okay. The Alabama legislature met the following day and passed it. It was a beautiful thing to see. And I consider myself to be the father of IVF in a certain way. And the Republicans were very strong on the issue.
But, sir, I want to understand where it falls in your list of priorities. I mean, is this something we can expect to see you try to move on in the first 100 days?
We're going to be talking about it, and we're going to be seeing. We have a lot of other things. I have tax cuts. You know, we'll be submitting in either the first or second package to Congress the extension of the tax cuts. So that might very well be in there, or it'll come sometime after that.
Let's talk about abortion, sir. You have taken responsibility for overturning Roe v. Wade. You've said that abortion is now a state issue. There are steps that you could take, though, as president to restrict abortion through executive action without Congress. More than half of abortions in this country are medication abortions. Will you restrict the availability of abortion pills when you're in office?
I'll probably stay with exactly what I've been saying for the last 2 years, and the answer is no.
You commit to that?
Well, I commit. I mean, do things change? I think they change. I hate to go on shows like Joe Biden. I'm not going to give my son a pardon. I will not, under any circumstances, give him a pardon. I watched this, and I always knew he was going to give him a pardon, and I don't like putting myself in a position like that. So things do change, but I don't think it's going to change at all.
Okay. Let's talk about some of your picks to fill out your administration. You named Kash Patel to be the next FBI director. Yeah. He has a list in his book of 60 people that he calls members of the so-called deep state. It includes Democrats like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. It includes former members of your cabinet, from Bill Barr to Christopher Wray. You campaigned on destroying the deep state. Do you want Kash Patel to launch investigations into people on that list?
No, I mean, he's going to do what he thinks is right.
Do you think that's right? Do you think that's right, sir?
So she said that Trump campaigned to end the deep state. And then she asked if he was going to send Kash Patel to pursue those people and prosecute them. So if you follow it logically, is she suggesting that those people are members of the deep state? Because if what Trump says he would destroy is the deep state, it's a different thing calling people by direct name. And I remember the only person he called directly is about the Biden crime family. It's not Joe Biden, but Biden crime family, which means it was specific. I had to interject in this because of that logical anomaly. If they are the deep state, then they are part of the people that are set out to destroy. But if not, if they are not the deep state, then what are you talking about? So let's continue.
If they think that somebody was dishonest or crooked or a corrupt politician, I think he probably has an obligation to do it. But
are you going to direct him to do it?
No, not at all. Not at all. We have two great people there. We have him and we have Pam. And Pam Bondi has been like a rocket ship. She's very popular and very good and very fair. And Kash Patel is very fair. I'll tell you, I thought Kash may be difficult because he's, a strong conservative voice. And I don't know of anybody that's not singing his praises. The other day I was watching, and Trey Gowdy, who's a moderate person and very smart and very respected in the party, he's Kash's biggest fan. He said, this is the most misunderstood man in politics. He's great. I guess they worked together on the Russia hoax or something. And Trey Gowdy became a fan. Trey Gowdy. Everybody respects him. And, just like him, others also. I don't know of one negative vote. I don't think he's going to have any negative votes.
Is it your expectation, though, that Kash Patel will pursue investigations against your political enemies?
No, I don't think so.
Do you want to see that happen?
If they were crooked, if they did something wrong, if they have broken the law, probably. They went after me, They went after me and I did nothing wrong.
Well, let me ask you this. You said President Biden, quote, that you're going to appoint a real special prosecutor to go after Joe Biden. You said that
during
the campaign.
Where?
You said that on Truth Social, June 12th, 2023. I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family. Are you going to do that? Are you going to go after Joe Biden?
I'm really looking to make our country successful. I'm not looking to go back into the past. I'm looking to make our country successful. Retribution will be through success. If we can make this country successful, that would be that would be such a great achievement. Bring it back. We have a country now that's overridden with crime, that has millions of people that shouldn't be here, that should be in prisons in other countries, that should be in mental institutions. We have drug lords being dropped into our country and told never go back to their country. I'm looking to make our country great. I'm looking to bring prices down because, I won on two things, the border, and more than immigration. They like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I won on the border and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
I want to pause here because what you're saying is significant. Because you wrote on Truth Social in 2023 that you're going to appoint a real special prosecutor to go after Joe Biden. Now you're saying you're not going to do that.
I will say this. No, I'm not doing that unless I find something that I think is reasonable. But that's not going to be my decision. That's going to be Pam Bondi's decision, and to a different extent, Kash Patel. Assuming they're both there, and I think they're both going to get approved. But while you ask me that, what they've done to me with weaponization is a disgrace.
We'll get to some of that,
No,
sir.
wait. You can't do one without the other. In the history of our country, nothing like this has ever happened. And I've won these cases. I've won every one, and the rest are in the process of being won. Deranged Jack Smith is on his way back to The Hague, where he can execute people. This is where he should have stayed. I think he's dangerous even being there. But I'll tell you what they've done to me in terms of weaponization, indictments, impeachments, and everything else. And in the end, it probably helped me because I got the biggest vote, the most votes any Republican's ever gotten in history.
Pam Bondi talks about investigating the investigators. Do you want her to investigate Jack Smith?
I want her to do what she wants to do.
Do you want to see Jack Smith investigated?
Well, I think he's very corrupt, but I want her to do whatever she has to do.
Are you going to direct her to prosecute
I'm not.
Jack
She's
Smith?
a very smart person. She was a great attorney general in Florida. She's very experienced. I want her to do what she wants to do. I'm not going to instruct her to do it, no.
Sir, are you going to fire the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, who you appointed?
Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done. And crime is at an all-time high. Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions, as we've discussed. I can't say I'm thrilled. I don't want to be Joe Biden and give you an answer and then do the exact opposite.
We're going to talk about that.
So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is I certainly cannot be happy with him. You take a look at what's happened. And then when I was shot in the ear, he said, oh, maybe it was shrapnel. Where's the shrapnel coming from? Is it coming from heaven? I don't think so. So we need somebody to straighten. I have a lot of respect for the FBI, but the FBI's respect has gone way down over the last number of years.
Don't you have to fire him in order to make room for Kash Patel if he is, in fact, confirmed?
Well, I mean, it would sort of seem pretty obvious that if Kash gets in, he's going to be taking somebody's place, right? And somebody is the man that you're talking about.
Okay. Let's talk about Project 2025. This is the conservative policy blueprint. You disavowed it during the campaign. You called it a product of the radical right. You've said some of their ideas were abysmal.
I said some of it is. Some of it is very good. Some of it's very mainstream, actually. Frankly, the Democrats should have used some of it because they went, with all the transgender that they were doing and with the men playing in women's sports. Well, if they wouldn't have done that, maybe they would have done better.
Well, so you take me to my question. You're now giving people involved in Project 2025 prominent roles in your administration. Are you changing your mind about Project 2025? No. Is this now the policy blueprint for the second Trump administration?
No. Some people, if you take a look at the group, it was hundreds of people were involved. And I was actually, I reprimanded the whole group. I said, you shouldn't have placed this document in front of the voters because I have nothing to do with it and I'm the one that's running. You had no right to do this where you put a 1,000-page document in front. And many of those things I disagree with. Now, many of those things I happen to agree with. Many of those things Democrats should have agreed to. And I think they would have done much better in the election because they got slaughtered.
Well, I guess people see the list: Russ Vought, Brendan Carr, Peter Navarro, John Ratcliffe, Pete Hoekstra, Monica Crowley. And they think these are all of the people who were involved in or writing Project 2025. This must be a blueprint for work requirements, eliminating the Head Start program, criminalizing pornography. Is that what we can expect to see?
Well, I don't know how they voted. I don't know. I never spoke to them actually about it. And I purposely, and I told you, normally it would be just the opposite. I'd review every page. I purposely didn't even want to see it. Because when somebody like you asked me a question about Project 2025, I can honestly say I've never seen it. I have nothing to do with it. I didn't read it, but I did hear some things in there that I would totally disagree with. And I said to the people that were really the people behind it, you know who those people are? I said, you really had no right doing this to me because they used it as a soundbite, the Democrats. And I don't know, it couldn't have been too effective because they got slaughtered. But they did use it as a soundbite.
But to people who see, oh, he's bringing in all of these people from Project 2025, he must know what it is.
Well,
you say what?
I don't know what it is. No, I don't know what it is.
You still don't know
but
what
I
it is?
heard
All these
certain
people
things
are
that I
coming in
didn't
from
like.
your-
And by the way, I heard certain things that are phenomenal. Okay?
Like what?
Like law and order. We want law and order. Okay? Little things like, let's put prisoners in jail. Let's not let people come out and raid every drugstore in Manhattan so that we have to put glass up and every store is going out of business.
So if you're still finding any need for, or if you're finding any value in this second section, please, I plead that you subscribe so that you will not miss the remaining episode. Also, like, share, and also comment. Criticize both the interviewer and Donald Trump himself, and in me, criticize me if my analysis or my keeping quiet is not good at all. If you are expecting me to talk more, just say it so that in case there is any more interview in future, I see a better way to inject my own opinion. Trust me, I have very strong opinion about what is going on here, but I believe, because most of the time when I listen to other commentators talk during interviews, I get a little bit jittery because I want to analyze it myself. If that is your own position, let me know. But if you want me to be coming in more often, more frequently, also let me know in the comment section so that I will come in with my own analysis as much as possible. Maybe not so much, but reasonably enough. Now we are going to the next section of the interview, which is the law phase. About the pardons. Initially, before Trump left office, they floated the idea that he would be going to pardon himself and pardon every other person. But this time around, that pardon is being done in our very eyes, and they are floating the idea of pardoning much more people in anticipation, preemptive pardoning. And you ask yourself, why do you pardon somebody who has not done something wrong? Why are you doing that? Except if you believe in your heart that that person have done something wrong, and there is a possibility, there is a reason for that person to have been targeted. That is where, under this section, because I know I made a mistake about it and about January 6th. So it is this section that the January 6th idea came up, not at the first session as I said from the beginning. So he talked about the pardoning, the preemptive pardoning planned by the president regarding those in the January 6th, especially Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, and the others. And then she asked her here if she will pardon the January 6ers. So for me, those people have been meted with the highest level of injustice. Trespassing is almost not what will put you in jail for 4 years. Some people have been awaiting trial ever since. But I know, if I remember somewhere so well, some people set fire on the St. John Chapel in the capital, and nothing happened to them. On the contrary, General Miller came and apologized for showing up beside the president to stop those people. Some people set the courthouse in Oregon on fire with people inside it during section, and nothing happened to them. And as Trump mentioned, some people took over a police precinct, created a whole village in the summer of love, Seattle, and nothing happens to them. The fact that these people for January 6th stuff were hunted down like animals is completely unbecoming. No civil society should do such a thing. But that was what he's done. And that is what this section was talking about. What is he going to do? How is he going to approach the idea of preemptive pardoning? And will he himself accept one if it is given by Joe Biden? So let us carefully listen into that and see both what his responses are and other things that made up this section, including Pete Hegseth, specifically Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, and the vaccine-related stuff, and why it is obvious that he brought RFK with some big pharma people together so that they can find a way to work together to combat some sicknesses like autism, which according to him used to be noticeable or diagnosed 1 in 1,000, but in the recent years it's almost there 1 in 100, which is terrible. According to him, he's open-minded, which is what I'm doing now. Open-mindedness, for me, that is a very great quality, because you don't presuppose a result. You just keep open mind and follow the fact wherever it follows, and not put a peg and walk your way towards it. So in that point, let us go back to continue the interview.
I asked you about something you've referenced a couple of times in this interview. I asked you last time we sat down for an interview if you were going to pardon yourself. You said no. But now that President Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter, are you reconsidering? Might you pardon yourself?
I didn't do anything wrong. I was given the option. And the lawyers told me, a very specific lawyer, I don't have to go into who, but very high up in the administration said, sir, if you pardon yourself, you're going to look guilty. And you did nothing wrong. Oh, I had that option. I could have saved myself a lot of legal fees. But it turned out that I was right. Look at what's gone on. Everything's being dropped. I still have a Fonnie Willis, a total hoax. That's a total hoax. It's all being dropped. It's all been discredited. It's been dropped. There are those people that say, and this would be the first time in history, that all of those fake indictments, they were going after a political opponent. There are those that say that I actually did better in the election because of it. Now, that would be a first. I think you would agree, because normally that's like you go back to the microphones, you say, I'm leaving right now, I will leave office, I'm going back to my family, and I will fight for my name. Well, I had to fight for my name in public because I didn't leave office. But no, I didn't want to pardon, and I didn't want to pardon myself. I had the option to pardon myself.
And you don't want one now? You're not going to pardon yourself now?
What do I need one for? First of all, I've won almost all of the cases.
What if President Biden...
And the ones that I didn't win are on resuscitation.
What if President Biden offered you a pardon? Would you accept it?
I've never even thought about it. I don't think he'll do it. Look, if he did, he's the one that started this whole thing. He got the Justice Department to go after me. And the state cases are all being run by the Justice Department, which is illegal. They had their people from the Justice Department work for Alvin Bragg in order to get something going. They worked for Letitia James in the state. He had his people go from the federal government and take lesser jobs in the state in order to get Donald
And you know
Trump.
he denies he had anything to do with it.
No,
and
you can't deny it. You know why?
Yeah.
Because they were there. Wait a minute. Wait. You know, you have a tendency to sort of like slough over things. You just made a statement. His person, the top, maybe the third or second or third person, left the federal government, the DOJ, and went to work for Letitia James. And then, after they got that one started, went to work for the DA.
Let me ask you about some of this new reporting. NBC News is reporting that President Biden is considering giving preemptive pardons to the likes of Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, and Anthony Fauci. If President Biden doesn't issue those pardons, do you think they are going to wish that he had? Are they going to be pursued?
I can tell you this about Cheney, and she's a so-called Republican. I think she hurt the Democrats terribly. When I saw that Kamala put Cheney out on the campaign trail, I said, that's the end of Kamala. I really did. I thought it was a terrible move, especially if you're a Democrat. But Cheney did something that's inexcusable, along with Thompson and the people on the Unselect Committee of political thugs and, creeps. So the Unselect Committee went through a year and a half of testimony. Wait. They deleted and destroyed all evidence of that they found. You know why? Because Nancy Pelosi was guilty. Nancy Pelosi turned down 10,000 troops. You wouldn't have had a J6 because other people were guilty. The people that said that I attacked 2 Secret Service agents in a car. I grabbed one around the neck. I was then rebuffed, and I grabbed the other one. These are 2 of the toughest men anywhere on the planet.
Before I continue with this section, I saw a clip about this particular section from Karen, a Christian. So she was, just as she interjected here, saying that the select committee denied it. She also said it in the one she put out after the interview, that they denied it. But unfortunately, they denied it is not enough. It's not enough because it was, I read it a lot of places. You can also Google it and check it yourself. They denied it, but it was true. They deleted the findings, the paperwork, they deleted it and put electronically what they summarize. But if you cannot get your hands on the depositions, the fights and the depositions of the individuals, You cannot have exactly the tangible, the concrete black and white information that the people, the witnesses brought forward. So that was what Trump was talking about here. She, just as she has always done, carried the lamp for the establishment or for the Democrat Party. She did the same thing in this, and she also did it in the version of the interview that she put forward after. So having said that, let us go back to the interview.
They happen to be slightly younger than me, maybe, just a little bit. Let me just tell you. They testified. They said it was total. And all of this stuff came out. People lied so badly. Now, listen, this was a committee, a big deal. They lied. And what did they do? They deleted and destroyed a whole year and a half worth of testimony. Do you know that I think those people committed a major crime.
Sir.
And Cheney was behind it. And so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. For what they did,
Yeah.
honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think
I think
should
everybody
go to jail?
anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that, but I'm going to focus on drill, baby, drill.
When you say that,
on
it carries
strengthening
weight, though. You've tapped these people to lead the Justice Department and FBI.
They can do whatever they want.
Okay.
Biden can give him a pardon if he wants to, and maybe he should. Just remember, unselect committee, a year and a half of sworn testimony, and after getting all of the testimony, they deleted it, and they destroyed almost everything. There's nothing left. It's unprecedented.
And they deny
If you
doing
do that in a civil case, you go to jail.
They deny doing that. And officials say that the order never came in for the National
put out
Guard.
a statement.
On January 6th, let me ask you this about January 6th. I think
Benny
you're going to want to
Thompson
answer
wrote
this.
in a statement that he has destroyed all evidence.
Let me ask you this about January
Amazing.
6th.
I wish you could be you have such potential. If you could be just non-biased, you hurt yourself so badly.
Hey, this is the point where I think Trump struck a record, giving her a little advice about her professional life. If you can be less biased, he's saying you are doing yourself a great time. If you can be less biased, you have a lot of potential. And trust me, I think she has a lot of potentials. Her way of asking questions, her physical presence is really great. But her taking sides destroys her work. Her taking sides is so obvious that her professionalism is by itself subjected to scrutiny. You shouldn't let that happen. She allowed her personal motivation show so much. Her personal bias shows so much in her professional output. And that is what the chord Trump struck here that was really significant. And if you looked at her, you will see the body language. I'm not an expert under that field, but if you look at the body language, you see that she resigned. And you see in her face that she knew Trump was right. So let's go back to it.
I'm telling you, they deleted and destroyed all the evidence. Everyone knows it. And you slough it off like it doesn't mean anything.
No, I'm just saying they deny it. That's all I'm saying.
Kristen, if I did it, you would be standing up in that chair shouting at me. And you know what I'd do? I'd say, you got me. They have done something so illegal. They have a committee sworn to, and because it was so bad, the only reason they did it is because the testimony turned out to be in favor of me. Like Secret Service testified and disputed everything. It made them into a bunch of liars. Not Secret Service, it made the people. They got rid of it because it made Nancy Pelosi, the mayor of D.C., so many people look like criminals. And I will tell you, it's illegal for them to delete and to destroy that evidence.
Let me in a different capacity, okay? I think you're going to want to answer this question. You promised to pardon those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Are you still vowing to follow through with that promise?
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah.
Well,
those people have suffered long and hard, and there may be some exceptions to it. I have to look. But, if somebody was radical, crazy, there might be some people from Antifa there. I don't know, because those people seem to be in good shape. Whatever happened to Scaffold Man? You know who Scaffold Man was? He stood on a scaffold telling everybody to go and nothing happened to him. Whatever happened to Ray Epps? Now, I don't know anything about Ray Epps, but it was sort of strange the way he was talking. Where is he? What happened to him? Because the people that did very little, they arrested an old woman because I don't think she did anything. They don't even know what she did. These people have suffered. Their lives have been destroyed. And yet in Portland, where they burn down half the city, they burn it down all the time. It's like a routine occurrence. They don't do anything. They attack the courthouse, federal courthouse. They always say federal building. Okay. They destroyed the beautiful limestone exterior of the courthouse in Portland. They killed people in Portland. Seattle, people got killed in Seattle. Seattle, they took over a big chunk of the city. They took it over. They took the city away. Minneapolis, it looked like when they said this is a friendly protest, and yet over the poor slob from CNN, his shoulder, the entire city was burning down. It looked like World War II. Nothing happened. But wait, nothing happened. They took over the police statement. They took over the police station in Minneapolis. They burned it down. Nothing happened to anybody. And yet these people have been in jail, and I hear the jail is a hellhole. They've done reports, and you would say that's true. They've done reports. This is the most disgusting, filthy place. These people are living in hell. And I think it's very unfair. But most likely I'll do it very quickly.
Very quickly. Okay, but some of them, 169 of them, have pleaded guilty to assaulting police officers.
Because they had no choice.
900 pleaded guilty to other crimes. They're also going to be eligible for a pardon from you?
Listen, it's a very tough system. Do you know almost nobody? I saw people that didn't even go into the building and they were convicted. And you had the police saying, come on in, come on in. I mean, the police are saying, come on in, everybody, come on in. They had people, you have a lot of cameras. They don't want to release the tapes. They don't want to release the tapes.
So, but you're going to consider pardoning even those who've pleaded guilty to crimes, including assaulting police officers?
Well, sometimes they say, here's your choice.
You're not ruling it out?
Look, I know the system. The system's a very corrupt system. They say to a guy, you're going to go to jail for 2 years or for 30 years. And these guys are looking, their whole lives have been destroyed. For 2 years, they've been destroyed. But the system is a very nasty system.
Issue these pardons.
These people have been there, how long is it, 3 or 4 years?
Okay.
For years. And they're in a filthy, disgusting place that shouldn't even be allowed to be open.
Let's talk about, I know we started off talking about Pete Hegseth, but I just want to return to that very quickly. Have you gotten assurances from senators that he's going to be confirmed? Do you think he can make it?
No. I think he will, yeah. I've had a lot of senators call me up saying he's fantastic.
You don't drink yourself.
No.
You've talked about how devastating drinking can be.
No.
How concerned are you that the person who you picked for this top job at the Defense Department, at least according to those who've worked with him, has struggled with drinking?
But I've spoken to people that know him very well, and they say he does not have a drinking problem. Right. And, he had a lot of knives out for him. A lot of people don't want to see the military made better.
Let me ask you about former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. You picked her to be the Director of National Intelligence.
Right.
In 2017, she had 2 secret meetings with Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. Do you have questions or concerns about those meetings?
No. And he's got bigger problems right now.
Well, do you think it makes it hard for her?
His country is collapsing.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it compromises her ability to handle that?
I met with Putin. I met with President Xi of China. I met with Kim Jong-un twice. Does that mean that I can't be president?
Well, when you were president, they weren't secret meetings.
Look, people meet. All these people meet. I mean, I see some of the most dishonest people. I'll tell you, the 51 agents that said that the laptop wasn't from Hunter, it was from Russia. What about them? Tell me about them. Do you think they did something wrong? Do you think they were all so stupid that they thought that the laptop from hell?
So you have confidence in Tulsi Gabbard?
I do. So does she's a very respected person.
Let me ask you about RFK Jr. He has obviously talked about his skepticism of vaccines. He's expressed opposition to childhood vaccines. Do you want to see childhood vaccines eliminated?
So before we continue on this, RFK has dedicated his life fighting especially vaccine in little kids, not really to be 100% eradicated, but he has a doubt that most of the vaccines we are receiving are really doing what they're supposed to do. And he himself, according to him, he had a very terrible experience regarding that. And when you see what happened during the COVID and the COVID vaccine, you cannot but throw the question also. And I said in one of the episodes of this my show that I passed out after taking the second shot of the vaccine. A lot of people have similar experiences. Also, some people, I have few people in my area that got their legs paralyzed after taking some vaccine. It doesn't mean that it should be removed, but it's under this segment that Trump said, I just want them to look into them, especially as regards autism and all other diseases that the kids of these days are having, ADHD, all of these neurological or psychological controlled sicknesses. What is their causes? What is their causes? Are they what we eat, or the chlorine, or the vaccines? Open-minded, just find out what the cause is. That is what he's saying. And he said finally that RFK was not going to upset anything. He's only going to see a way to perfect the situation they have, so that all of these problems that are these health problems will be at least made less than they are now. So on that, let's go back to the interview.
If they're dangerous for the children. Look.
So possibly?
When you look at some of the problems, when you look at what's going on with disease and sickness in our country, something's wrong.
Are you talking about autism?
Well, if you take a look at autism, you go back 25 years, autism was almost non-existent. It was, 1 out of 100,000, and now it's close to 1 out of 100.
Well,
I mean, what's happening? If they can find it. Now, I did something the other night that was a little unusual. At Mar-a-Lago, I called the drug companies, the top drug companies, and I called RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz and some of his people. And I said, let's all get together and let's figure out where we're going, because we're going to do a lot of things. Number one, we're going to reduce prices, because the middleman makes more money than the drug companies, in all fairness to the drug companies. There's a middleman that nobody even knows who they are. And you look at our drug prices, they're much higher than the prices for the same medicine, for the same stuff. So we met, and we met for a long time. And we talked about pricing, and we talked about vaccines, in terms of what happens. We talked about pesticides. We talked about everything. And I think a lot of good things are going to come from him. And he's not going to upset any system. He's not going to upset this. He's not looking to, to reinvent the wheel totally. But when you look at the numbers, we really don't have a very healthy country.
Well, sir, going back 25 years, studies show that there is no link between vaccines and autism. And yet it sounds like you are open to the possibility of him looking
I'm
at
open to
getting
anything.
rid of them?
I think somebody has to find out. If you go back 25 years ago, you had very little autism. Now you have it. I mean,
Well, they say because they're better at identifying it.
1 in 100,000, and now it's 1 in 100. That's a pretty bad number.
Childhood vaccines
I mean,
have
something is going on. I don't know if it's vaccines. Maybe it's chlorine in the water, right? People are looking at a lot of different things.
Childhood vaccines.
I want them to look at everything.
Everything. So childhood vaccines have prevented about 4 million deaths around the world every year.
I think that's
sir.
great.
Isn't that...
I'm all for it. I think it's great. Hey, look, I'm not against vaccines. The polio vaccine is the greatest thing. If somebody told me get rid of the polio vaccine, they're going to have to work real hard to convince me. I think certain vaccines are incredible, but maybe some aren't. And if they aren't, we have to find out. But when you talk about autism, because it was brought up, and you look at the amount we have today versus 20 or 25 years ago, it's pretty scary.
Well, again, scientists say that's because they've gotten better at identifying it, and there's no link in
but
studies.
The drug companies are going to be working with RFK Jr., and he's been an interesting guy to me. I've watched him for 25 years. And he's been an interesting guy.
Let's talk about Elon Musk, another interesting person.
He's very interesting.
Last month, one of your allies said, quote, he's behaving as if he's a co-president. Will you favor Elon Musk over other leaders of competitor companies like Jeff Bezos, Mary Barra?
No, Jeff Bezos called me. We're having dinner. As you know, Mark Zuckerberg came in. We had a really nice dinner. He asked to have dinner. I had dinner with him. I'm having dinner with everybody. People like me now. I wasn't nearly as popular as this. And one thing that's very important in terms of the election, I love that I won the popular vote, and by a lot. If I didn't,
1.6%.
because they would go with the other one. They say, well, he didn't win the popular vote. He won a lot of, I won a lot of the electoral college, but they would always preface it by saying, now they say he won the popular vote and he won the electoral college and he won all 7 swing states. That was a great election.
Very quickly, because we're going to talk about the election coming up, but you've tapped Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, to head up this Department of Government Efficiency.
Correct.
Which proposes cuts to the federal government. I think a lot of people hear that and they get concerned about Medicare and Social Security and
Not
Medicaid
going to have anything to do.
and defense spending.
We're talking
you
about
won't touch
theft,
Medicare, Social Security.
Abuse, fraud.
Okay.
No, I said to be, we're not touching Social Security, other than we make it more efficient, but the people are going to get what they're getting.
Okay, so the entitlements
And
off the table.
we're not raising ages or any of that stuff.
Okay,
No,
off the table.
I won't do it.
Okay, let's turn to foreign policy.
So that brings to an end that section of the interview, and you see the areas covered: Elon Musk, RFK, Doge, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, the pardons on the J6ers, and also what else? Yeah, more or less. So now the next segment is going to talk about more dedicated to the foreign policy. And her question was towards Ukraine and a way to try to end the war as he promised during the election. Also, the NATO membership, whether he will still remain with NATO if they are delinquent. And the hostages in Gaza, the statement Trump made about the hostages in Gaza, that if they don't release them, that it will be fury. And also Trump himself made the suggestion that intrinsically that possibly they may not be alive. And he gave an example with the girl who they dragged on the head and threw at the back of the car. And she questioned if he would pressure Netanyahu to end the war, which Trump said yes, he will. I don't know why anyone wants the war to go on, which is also the statement that Trump shares. But asking what would be the reaction of the U.S. if China invests Taiwan, which Trump says he's not going to give out his strategy now, but rather he prefers that she doesn't do that. And he have been talking with him recently, and they mentioned something about that. Also, he talked about helping TikTok to survive instead of letting it be removed. And he gave an example. It helped him in the election. Why would it not help them out? It's not quid pro quo, but a way of getting a great American company to stay instead of allowing the force of monopoly to capture every other thing. Because according to him, if you remove TikTok, something else will take their position. So why not make it so that every other person has availability? And even though they didn't mention about the people whose livelihood depend on that, I think somehow it will be at the back of his mind. And then she was talking about the country being divided, that the country is divided at the moment and he's going to be the president. How is he going to bring them together? And he said in his own way that I didn't divide them. I'm not the president. He's the person in office that divided them, which is legitimately true. And he also mentioned about the election of 2020. If actually that the Democrats rigged the election of the 2020 when they didn't have power, why didn't they rig it now? And he said the simple answer is what? It was too big to rig. That means he had in his mind that somehow the rigging still occurred. Of course, any person may doubt it, but if you are doubting it so much, you can just shine your light at the Pennsylvania's senatorial election, whereby the returning officers were telling voting to let everything count, even the ballots that were officially rejected by the mandate of the court. So the one that was later on rescinded before the senator conceded to losing the election. So those were the factions, the section or the topics that make up this section. But before we delve into it whole, if you're getting any value so far, please, it would be so nice if you help to subscribe, like, share, and also comment. I just want you to comment. Let us just make this conversational. And I promise you, if you comment, doesn't matter what you write, even if you curse my big head, I will definitely respond. Now, I will either curse you back anyway or laugh at it and then continue. So please, let's go back to it.
Policy. Should Ukraine prepare for less aid from the United States after you're sworn into office?
Yeah, probably. Sure.
You've said you can end the war in
We're in
24
for 350 billion, and Europe is in for 100 billion. Why isn't Europe in for the same as us? The one thing that should happen is that Europe should come in they should equalize. And, Biden, all he had to do, like I did with NATO, I said, you got to pay your bills. They weren't paying their bills. And as you know, the Secretary General said, President Trump got $600 billion, now 640 to be exact. And I used to use the 400 billion number. He corrected me. He said, no, you actually got $641 billion put in, because I said you have to pay your bills. We were paying for NATO. And you know why I got the money? Because I asked for it. It wasn't that complicated. Europe is in for a fraction. And war with Russia is more important for Europe than it is for us. It's important for everybody, but it's more important for Europe than it is for us.
And you've said
we have a little thing called an ocean in between us.
You said you can end the war in 24 hours. You've even said you want to try to end it before you're sworn into office.
I'm trying to end it.
You're actively trying to?
I am.
Have you talked to President Putin?
No, I have not.
You haven't talked to President Putin
No, I have
since
not.
you've been elected?
No. Well, I don't want to say that, but I haven't spoken to him recently.
So you've spoken to President Putin since you've been elected?
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say anything about that, because I don't want to do anything that could impede the negotiation.
But you
I want to stop
talked
it.
about
Let me
the
tell you
other
what I
world
have talked
leaders.
about. Let me tell
Okay.
you. There are people being killed in that war at levels that nobody's ever seen before. You have to go back to the Second World War, and even that, if you take a look at, and you know what it is? It's the soldiers largely. The cities have been emptied out and demolished. The country has been demolished. If I won that election, which you know how I feel about it, I won't get into it because we don't need to start that argument. I think it's an easy argument. It was really proven even more conclusively by the win that I had on this one. But
you did go to court, sir.
Well, that's your opinion,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
disagree with it. Had I kept control, number one, Israel wouldn't have happened. Number two, Ukraine would have never happened. It would have never happened, Ukraine, Russia. But the number of people that are being killed, soldiers, young, beautiful soldiers, hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. And it's very interesting. It's level, totally level. The battlefields, totally level. You know what's happening?
Yeah.
The only thing that stops a bullet, you know what it is a body, a human body. And the people that are being killed, hundreds of thousands on both sides. Russia's lost probably 500,000.
Devastating.
Ukraine's lost higher than they say, probably 400,000. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of bodies laying all over fields. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen, and it should have never been allowed to happen. Biden should have been able to stop it.
Sir, will the United States stay in NATO while you're in office?
In where?
NATO. Do you commit that the United States will remain a member of NATO while you're in office?
Again, they have to pay their bills. If they pay their bills, absolutely.
But not if they don't pay their bills.
But NATO's taken advantage of us because look, two things. Number one, they take advantage of us on trade, meaning the European nations, okay, like terrible. They don't take our cars, they don't take our food product, they don't take anything. It's a disgrace. And on top of that, we defend them. So it's a double whammy. So let me just tell you, I was able to get hundreds of billions of dollars put into NATO just by a tough attitude. I said to the countries, I'm not going to protect you unless you pay. And they started paying. And that amounted to more than $600 billion. That's a big thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be fighting. They wouldn't have any money to fight. If they're paying their bills, and if I think they're treating us fairly, the answer is absolutely, I'd stay with NATO.
But if not, you would consider the possibility of getting it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Let's turn to the Middle East now, sir. There are still American hostages being held in Gaza.
Yeah.
You said this week that if the hostages aren't released before Inauguration Day, quote, there will be all hell to pay.
Correct.
What exactly did you mean? And do you still think that the hostages are alive?
I'm not a big believer in the fact that there are too many of them living, sadly, because I've seen the way they've been treated. I talk about the young girl that was pulled by her hair violently and thrown into the back of a car like she was a sack of potatoes. And I said, that's hatred. And then I said, how did that young girl do? Beautiful young girl just dragged by her hair. You remember, blood pouring all over her body. You can imagine the parents thrown into the back of a car by some horrible guy. And I said, how is she? She's dead. She died, sir. I don't think you have as many. I mean, I hate to say it. I think you have far fewer hostages than people think.
Going to pressure Prime Minister Netanyahu, with whom you have a very good relationship, to end the war in Gaza.
Yeah, sure.
And have you already started that process?
I want him to end it, but you got to have a victory. People forget about October 7th. That was as violent. And you know what's happening? I noticed that a lot of people are saying, oh, it never really happened. That's like the Holocaust. You know, you have Holocaust deniers. Now you have October 7th deniers, and it just happened. No, October 7th happened. And I've seen the pictures. What happened is horrible.
If China invades Taiwan on your watch, are you committed to defending Taiwan?
I never say.
Still won't say?
I never say, because I have to negotiate things, right?
Can you just say if you'll defend it? I'm not saying if the U.S. military.
I'd prefer that they don't do it. I have a very good relationship with President Xi. We have been communicating with each other.
Since you were elected?
Yes.
And you sent that message?
Since like 3 days ago. Yes, we communicate.
And you sent that message to him, don't invade Taiwan?
We didn't talk about that.
Okay.
We talked about other things. But I have a very good relationship, and I hope he doesn't do it.
This week, a federal court upheld a law that could result in TikTok being banned. You said you're going to rescue TikTok when you get into office. Are you going to take steps to protect it?
Yeah, and as you know, I used TikTok very successfully in my campaign. I have a man named TikTok Jack. He was very effective, obviously, because I won youth by 30%. All Republicans lose youth. I don't know why. Maybe it's changing. And last time we were down 30% with youth. This time we're up 35% with youth. And I use TikTok, so I can't really, I can't totally hate it. It was very effective. But I will say this, if you do that, something else is going to come along and take its place. And maybe that's not fair. What they're doing, and really what the judge actually said was that you can't have Chinese companies. In other words, they have the right to ban it if you can prove that Chinese companies own it. That's what the judge actually said.
So are you going to try to protect TikTok, just very quick, once you're in office?
I'm going to try and make it so that other companies don't become an even bigger monopoly.
This is your first interview since you won the election.
Congratulations.
Yes,
I hope
congratulations
you do well.
to you.
I hope you do well.
Yes, and sir, I don't have to tell you this because you've talked about it. It comes at a time when the country is deeply divided. And now you're going to be leading this country for the next 4 years. For the sake of unifying this country, will you concede the 2020 election and turn the page on that chapter?
No. No. Why would I do that? But let me just tell you, when
won't
you
ever
say the
concede.
country is deeply divided, I'm not the president. Joe Biden's the president.
But you're going to be the president.
No. I'm not the president. So when you say it's deeply divided, I agree. But Biden's the president, I'm not. And he has been a divider. And you know where he divided it more than anything else, and it probably backfired on him, I think definitely, is weaponization. When he weaponized the Justice Department and he went after his political opponent, me, he went after his political opponent violently because he knew he couldn't beat him. And I think it really was a bad thing. And it really divided our country.
Sir, Democrats have control of the White House now. They didn't in 2020. If they're going around stealing elections, why
when you
didn't
say
they do it
Democrats
this
have
time?
control now?
Of the White House.
Yeah.
So why didn't they steal this election? Since they have more power now.
Because I think it was too big to rig.
So you won't.
Too big to rig.
To the people who say that you're now directing your Justice Department to investigate 2020 and they want to move on.
I have very capable. I think
Is that
Pam
a
is
good
going to
use
be
of
great.
precious resources?
By the way,
is that what you
just so
want
you
them
know,
to do?
Just so you know, I have the right to do that, but I'm not interested in that.
Oh, you're not. You're not going to do that.
I'm not interested. I
Okay.
have the absolute right. I'm the chief law enforcement officer. You do know that. I'm the president. But I'm not interested in that. You know what I'm interested in? Drilling and getting prices down and stopping people from pouring into our border that come from prisons and mental institutions.
Last two questions here. One of the things that made this campaign unprecedented and extraordinary were the horrific attempts against your life. 2 assassination attempts. Do you feel safe going into the White House
I do.
for the next 4 years? Why?
I have confidence in Secret Service. I know the people. I got to know a lot of them, and I have confidence. It was a bad moment. Something shouldn't have happened. But I have a lot of confidence, and they've really...
Hard on your entire family. What can people expect from the First Lady in this second administration? What role will she play? She obviously had her Be Best campaign.
She's very liked, loved, and she's very respected. And she's a very solid person. And she devotes a lot of time to helping children. You know what she does. And she's got her Be Best a deal that is incredible what she's done. The one thing I say, whether it's First Lady or my children did such a good job, and they were treated very badly by the press and others. Ivanka was unbelievable what she did, and she all she wanted to do is one thing: get people jobs. She could have been the UN secretary. I said to her, she would have been unbelievable. She's got the whole package for that, including right up there. She's as smart as they. She didn't want. She said, "Daddy, I want to work on getting people jobs." You know, she'd go to Walmart, she'd go to X such a. She produced millions of jobs for people. Not glamorous. Most people didn't know she did it. And she was always being excoriated. And I said to my kids, don't come in. Don't come in. It's just
You said to them, don't
I said to them, yeah.
But will you miss having them there? Will it
I'll
feel
miss
different? They were your
I'll miss
top
them, and
advisors.
I'll tell you what, I'll miss them, and they're really competent. But I say, just go have fun, do your business, do whatever you want to do, but don't come in. Because no matter what they did such a great job. Although I have to say, Lara did a phenomenal job as the head of the Republican National Committee, along with Michael.
What will the First Lady's role be, do you think? Will she continue her Be Best campaign?
She's a very elegant First Lady. She was a very successful woman before that, in the modeling and other things, but in the modeling, very successful. The press, I can't say treated her unfairly. You know why? Because she's very popular. You would think if the press was unfair, like to me, the press was obviously unfair to me. The press, no president has ever gotten, by far, it's not even close. So you say, what's that all about? The press has to straighten itself out because honestly, it's lost all credibility. When that can happen, based on the press, I should have gotten no votes, none. And yet I got the highest number ever. And the reason is because I'm able to go on a show, even like yours, even though you're very hostile, I'm able to go on a show like yours. No, you are.
Well, hopefully you thought it was a fair interview. We covered a lot of policy ground.
It's
here
fair
today.
only in that you allowed me to say what I say. But, you know, the answers, the questions are, you know, pretty nasty. But look, because I've seen you interview other people like Biden. And
I've never interviewed President Biden, actually.
when I say you, I'm talking metaphorically.
Okay.
I've seen George Stephanopoulos interview Biden. And he's a tough interviewer. It's the softest interview. I've seen CNN interview him. They give these soft, you know, what's your favorite ice cream? It's a whole different deal. I don't understand why. You know, you would think the press would like to see strong borders, great education, a powerful military, so we have a country left, and all these different things. And somehow they don't want to.
You, sir, one final question. What do you want to say to Americans who didn't support you in this campaign?
I'm going to treat you every bit as well as I have treated the greatest MAGA supporters. There's never been anything like MAGA in the history of this country. These people are so dedicated to making America great again. It's very simple. And I'm going to treat them just the same as I treat MAGA. We're going to treat everybody good. We want success for our country. We want safety for our country. You know, our country's under threat, as you know. We have a tremendous threat militarily because of the power of weapons and weaponry. It's a tremendous threat. Nobody talks about it, but it's a tremendous threat. I want to treat everybody the same. I want to treat them well. And at the end of this 4 years, and I have a big head start because I was there for 4 years fairly recently. A lot of bad things were done during the 4 years that I wasn't there, and mostly in what they've done in terms of our reputation overseas. Our reputation is so bad, so shot. I got to bring it back, and I also have to bring back civilization to our country. Our country is a crime pot, and we have to get rid of crime. We have so many things to do. We have to do the prices, we have to do all of that, but we have to get the criminals out of our country. We have to bring down crime. People have to be able to walk across the street and buy a loaf of bread without being shot, and that's going to happen. But what I say to them is, I love you, and we're going to all work together, and we're going to bring it together. And you know what's going to bring it together? Success. I saw that just prior to COVID coming in. I had polls that were the highest anyone. McLaughlin and Fabrizio said, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, if they came back from the dead and they ran as president and vice president, couldn't beat you, sir. We were doing so well. And I was getting along with the left. Let's call it the left, would be nice. Okay, we're just going to call it. But I was getting along with people that you would consider liberal or progressive, as they like to say, at levels that I never thought was possible. And you know what it was? Success. Success was bringing the country together, and that's what I want to do.
We'll leave it there unless you'd like to say anything more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the...
Okay, thank you so much for watching this magnificent interview with me. If you made it this far, first of all, gratitude. If you didn't, also, I'm grateful that you're able to watch even 1 minute of it. Not because you wanted to watch Trump, because you would have watched it somewhere else, but because you took out your time to listen to me blab about my own opinion regarding the interview. So, as we come to the end of this interview, if you found any value at all, please subscribe and click at that notice bell so that you wouldn't miss any of my videos or my posts. And also comment, share and like to help me grow the channel. I really want to be part of this tiny community. It's growing, and I really want to dedicate enough time for it, and you will help me do it. And so far, I appreciate your presence here. Until the next time we meet, let's hold it together. Thank you so much, and bye for now.